the National Freedom Party recalling the sole member of the KZN legislature, Mbali Shinga, from the KZN Government of Provincial Unity. Shinga, who is the party's provincial chair and KZN Social Development MEC, is currently suspended for voting against the MKP's failed motion of no confidence in Premier Thami Ntuli last month. And that's after the party's leadership had decided to vote alongside the MKP and the EFF to essentially collapse this coalition government. Let's get you more on this. Bring in SABC News Reporter Jayde Paulse, who is keeping a close eye on these developments. Early in the year, some drama already, Jayde, carrying on from those unprecedented scenes we saw in the KZN legislature last year in the wake of that motion of no confidence.
Well, a very good morning to you, Ayanda, and to the viewers back at home. And I think that all eyes are on KwaZulu-Natal now that the NFP has pulled out of the GPU. And as we continue to get reaction from political parties on the matter, I do want to bring into this conversation a political analyst, Beki Mngomezulu, just to unpack what this means for the GPU in KwaZulu-Natal, but also ahead of that very important local government elections this year. Prof, compliments of the season to you. One could call this the kingmaker's paradox. The NFP held only a single seat, Prof, yet it was truly the glue holding the GPU together. With their withdrawal now, the legislature is now essentially split 40-40. Does this mean the KZN government is effectively paralyzed until a new alliance is formed?
Good morning, Jayde, and good morning to your viewers. Thank you for having me, and compliments of the new year. Yes, indeed, we are living in interesting times in KwaZulu-Natal. The NFP has one seat, as you correctly pointed out, but it's one seat too many because it will decide the fate of the KZN legislature. All along, we knew that the NFP was part of the multi-party coalition, which they decided to call GPU, which included the IFP, the ANC, and the DA. Constituting 40 of the 80-member legislature. And then with the NFP, they made 41, which was 50 plus 1%, which is the threshold required to make sure that you run government. Now that the NFP has now decided that it is leaving this coalition government, it is now going to side with both the MK party, which has 37 seats, and the EFF, which has 2 seats, making it 39. Then if they get the NFP seat, then it gives them 40. Here is the problem. Ordinarily, the Speaker of the legislature is not supposed to vote, which means then the 40-40 technically means that it's 40-39. Because normally the Speaker only votes when there is a stalemate, where there is 50-50 and an issue has to be decided upon, then the Speaker comes with a deciding vote. In this case, she is not supposed to vote, which means then you will have 39 against 40, and then which means the scales would now be tilted in favor of the MK party as opposed to it being tilted in favor of the multi-party coalition. That is the reality we are faced with now.
And Prof, you know, the NFP President Ivan Barnes has suggested that logic dictates the MK party leading the province as the largest voter getter. Do you view the NFP's exit as a genuine ideological shift towards the MKP, or is this a tactical maneuver to gain more leverage in the new coalition?
First of all, the statement by Mr. Barnes is factually correct, but analytically flawed. It's analytically flawed because you recall that at the national level, the ANC got 40.18%, and then it is leading the coalition by virtue of having more votes compared to the other parties. Then come to KwaZulu-Natal, where the MK party has 45.35%, which is much bigger than the number that the ANC got at a national level. But then the NFP, the IFP is the one that produced the Premier with only 18% of the votes, which is a joke on its own. So in effectively, therefore, I would say Mr. Barnes is correct. But then if he knew about this from day one, why did he join the coalition of IFP, DA and ANC when he knew all along that the MK party got most of the votes in KwaZulu-Natal? That would have made sense. To come right now at the tail end, then it means that there is something that happened within the coalition which has basically left him convinced that what he signed up for is not what he's getting. Then out of disgruntlement, he's now pulling out. So then that's why I'm saying factually is right, but then analytically he is flawed.
And we do know that the NEP will have their media briefing tomorrow. But just looking at Barnes' utterances, he did also cite poor governance and financial mismanagement under Premier Thami Ntuli as reasons for leaving. Prof, in your analysis, are these grievances the primary driver, or is this more about the internal NEP leadership struggles between Ivan Barnes and the legislative wing?
In terms of Thami Ntuli's performance, basically it's a 50-50. Some would say that there are things he has done, and then others would say there is very little that is done. But that is neither here nor there. That is not the main reason. The main reason why Mr. Barnes is not happy is because within the party, Mbali Shinga occupies a critical position in the NFP, but then she doesn't toe the line, which means then you have a leadership crisis within the organization, which then makes it difficult for outsiders to take the party seriously. So while dealing with those internal squabbles within the NFP, you now have to deal with what is happening within the coalition. Of course, the reasons he's putting forth, for as long as he can present concrete evidence on how Mr. Thami Ntuli has failed to deliver on his mandate, then that reason becomes a subsidiary. The main issue is that there are squabbles within the NFP, and then secondly, he's still aggrieved because initially he was under the impression that the mayoral position of Zululand was going to be given to the NFP, when in fact that was never part of the discussion. So basically he missed the point there, because he was under the impression that when the now Kokta Minister Thula Sizwe left the mayoral position in Zululand, then ordinarily then Ivan Barnes would take that position, or anyone from the NFP. But that was not part of the agreement. I think that is where things started going wrong. Then to make his point stronger, then of course he has to come up with concrete reasons as to why he's pulling out. In this case, he blames Ntuli of mismanagement and also failing to take disciplinary action against Mr. Hlomoga and then also Nomakoko Simelane, which is one of the issues they've been putting on the table, saying that Thami Ntuli has failed to act on those ones.
And let's talk about the future of NEP member Mbali Shinga. She is an MEC in the province, and she was ordered by our party to resign as an MEC, yet she previously defied party orders during the December vote of no confidence. If she refuses to resign, Prof, what legal or constitutional mechanisms can the NFP use to remove her, especially given the state or given the fact that Speaker has previously rejected these attempts?
No, first of all, the Speaker has to be a referee. She cannot get involved in party politics. That is not her space. Her space is to run the legislature, and I think she's doing well. Of course, no one is 100% correct, but I think she's done relatively well. So on this one, she mustn't meddle in party political matters. That is point number one. Point number two, it's easy to get rid of Mbali Shinga. All you need to do is what the NFP has done. It has asked her to resign from her position as the MEC, and then if she refuses, well and good, then she has an agreement with the Speaker, that's fine. But then what you need to do then, you take her through the disciplinary process, which is currently underway, and we're waiting the outcome tomorrow. Once you remove her from the party, then it means that it will be impossible for her to represent the party in the legislature, let alone being part of the executive. So the easiest way out will be for the NFP to kick her out from the party, and by so doing, then it will have also removed her from the legislature. But it will still have to formally write to the Speaker and Boyce and say, we have removed Mbali Shinga from her position as a member of the legislature, and then of course we know that the appointment of Mbali Shinga as a member of the executive was by Thami Ntuli. But then you cannot appoint someone who is not representing a party and did not get a seat as an independent candidate. So it's easy. The NFP must just, if it wants to, it must just kick her out, then it's a done deal.
And Prof, during that failed vote of no confidence that you speak about, Premier Ntuli and Shinga's abstention was the deciding factor. We all know that. But how much did that specifically act of defiance destroy her relationship with the NEP leadership? And really, can that trust be rebuilt?
First of all, it was a last straw. I don't see the relationship between Mbali Shinga and the NFP being mended. Not now, not in the future. because once the executive of the organization has taken a position, yours is to toe the line, unless, of course, you have some grievances which you can raise within the structures of the party. Once a decision has been taken, that decision is final. We've seen the same thing with the ANC when it talks about democratic centralism. It means that while we are discussing the issue, you can air your views, you can disagree, it's fine, but once a resolution has been taken, yours is to implement it. So in this case, Mbali Shinga did not follow what the instruction was from her party, and therefore she defied the party. So it means that there is now a trust deficit between her as a member of the party, as a high-ranking official in the party, as a member of the legislature, and most importantly, as the MEC. So that relationship is gone, and I don't see it being recovered, not now, not in the future.
Always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for analysis there. Well, Ayanda, it's going to be a very interesting one. We do know that the NFP is holding their media briefing tomorrow, and it's also going to be interesting to get reaction from political parties. I am aware that some have already started sending out their statements on the matter, also expressing their views on the NFP pulling out of the GPU. I've seemed to have lost connection with Joburg, but I'll hand back to you in studio.
Right, Jayde Paulse, live to us there from Durban. Thanks very much indeed. It's a story we'll certainly keep watching for you as it continues to unfold.